Hello and welcome back to my F1 diary. I guess we're gonna get right into it and start with Franco replacing Jack in Alpine. I've talked about it a bit in my last video, that there were rumors that this was gonna happen and the rumors were true. So Jack is out, Colapinto's in, but similar to Jack, he's only signed for 5 races, so we might see Jack back again or any other of the Alpine reserve drivers. And I think I already talked about like how this isn't fair. Jack wasn't given enough time, etc., etc. So I'm not gonna rehash it, but yeah, it's not fair and Jack wasn't given enough time. But then we have another switch in Alpine in the team principal area. Oliver Oakes, who was the team principal until now, is out. He's the one who backed Jack up, and a lot of people thought that this was connected to Jack leaving. I mean, he's not leaving the team, he's just being demoted back to being a reserve driver. But a lot of people thought that that was connected, but apparently it's some legal problems that his brother is having, but I don't want to get into it. So he resigned, and stepping him instead of him is Flavio Briatore, who is no stranger to legal problems. He's a man who's responsible for a little F1 controversy called Crashgate, where in 2008, the Singapore Grand Prix, the team told Nelson Piquet Jr. to crash his car to help Fernando win that race. So yeah, Flavio and everyone who was involved got a life ban from the sport, but then later the French courts turned it over. So the man who once got a life ban is now a team principal of a team. I mean, not on paper. On paper, they have someone else, but executively, it is Flavio Briatore who is doing like a team principal role. So that's a pretty weird environment in Alpine. And I hope Jack gets out of it. And guess what? Flavio is his manager. What? Jack, please run away. That's not what a manager does. I mean, at this state of the grid, I don't know if he has an opportunity somewhere else. I mean, Cadillac might be an option, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to stay in Alpine if I were him. But okay. Just a great reminder of the bullet that Oscar dodged with the most iconic tweet in F1 history, probably, that documented maybe the smartest and best driver move in all time in F1. Because not only did he escape the shit show that is Alpine, he also went to McLaren, who are now world constructor champions, and he's on the way of getting a first championship. Maybe. Lando can still do it. I'm not doubting Lando. I'm just saying Oscar has a great chance as well. And even if not this year, definitely in the future. Like, I'm not doubting Oscar as a world champion at all. So, Oscar, please help your fellow Australian on the grid. Hook him up with Mark Webber, the other Australian, and take care of him, please. So with that over, let's talk about Imola, which is Kimi's home race, first home race technically. There's also Monza, obviously, but this is like his home race. He lives in Bologna, which is in the region, in the Emilia Romagna region. I think he lives just 30 minutes away from the track. His whole family was there this weekend. He brought his class like on a school trip, which is so cool. Like, imagine being one of those kids. He also had a note from Lewis in his driver room that Lewis left when he left the motorhome last season. Like, it's the motorhome that they have for the European leg, so Kimi just got the note now, which is fitting again because this is like his home race, so extra special. But unfortunately, it did not go as well as everyone hoped. I mean, I don't think anyone was rooting against Kimi this weekend. But yeah, quali, he did not qualify well, didn't get into Q3. And then in the race, he DNF'd because he had a problem with his engine. So not the best weekend for Kimi, unfortunately. A heartbreak for every Italian fan. And we'll get to more Italian heartbreaks in a minute. But the track itself, I wanted to note, it's similar to Japan in terms of difficult to overtake. It's a very old circuit, so it's narrow. And because of all that, qualifying is very, very important, just like it was in Japan, which was a bit worrying for me because McLaren, again, their edge is on Sunday in race pace and not necessarily on Saturday. And specifically Lando, who is struggling with qualifying at the moment, which is very not nice to see because on race pace, he's good. I would say maybe even better than Oscar. Granted, if Oscar's leading, he probably isn't pushing as much, but Lando seemed to have a really good race pace. It's just the quali that he can't nail. And yeah, again, this weekend, he qualified just P4 while Oscar got pole. So that didn't look very good for Lando. But also, Pirelli brought a new tire, a C6 tire, to be the softest tire of the allocation for this weekend, to try to spice up the race with a more diverse tire strategy and maybe make it a 2-stop instead of a 1-stop, which it traditionally is, which actually didn't really help, I wouldn't say, in the race. It more spiced up the quali than the race. And honestly, what I think would make for better races in terms of tire strategy and tire diversity, like we had in Bahrain, for example, is a more abrasive surface like we had in Bahrain. But that's something that's harder to control and is more expensive and requires a lot of work to achieve. But what I think would be better in terms of Pirelli's allocation for the weekend is having the hard, medium, and soft not be consecutive. Like it's not the C6, C5, and C4, just like maybe a C5 for the soft and then a C3 for the medium and a C1 for the hards. Like have a bigger difference between each tire compound. Maybe not to that extreme of a C5, C3, and C1, but you get what I'm saying. Just not have it a consecutive compound order of like the hard, mediums, and softs. Maybe that would spice things up more than introducing a newer, softer tire, which, as we learned in quali, was not that great. I mean, it did technically have more grip than the mediums and hards like it's supposed to, but it was very hard to keep alive during the lap, and not from degradation from what I understand, but more on temperature control. Like the tires would heat up too much and lose performance mid-lap. So there was some talk about using mediums in quali, and some teams did, and we'll get to it in a moment. I just want to go through a bit more organized. In Q1, we had 2 red flags, one for Yuki, which was a crazy crash. He flipped over the barrier, but thankfully in F1 these days, the safety is so good that he can just walk it off and be fine to race the next day. So props to the safety of F1. I think we need to praise it more often than we do. We take it for granted a little bit just because these kind of crashes happen and nothing happens to the driver, but we should be praising it because honestly, just a few years ago, before the halo, this could have ended very differently. So that was Yuki's red flag, and then we had Franco having a red flag. Not as bad, but that second red flag brought another controversy kind of Ollie Berman's lap. He crossed the line, like the session was over technically with the red flag out, like the clock ran out and also we had a red flag, and Ollie put in a lap that puts him into the top 10, basically through to Q2, and that bumped Bortoleto out. So then Q2 was delayed, obviously to allow marshals and recovery vehicle to recover Colapinto's car, but also for the FIA to decide what to do with that lap, because it was good for a second and then it was deleted, and Haas, rightfully so, said no, wait, he put that in before the red flag was out. So we sat there for a moment, and in the meantime on F1 TV they did an analysis of it, and they showed that Ollie crosses the finish line before the red flag. A lot before, actually. Like, not a lot before, but it's not like... It takes a few frames, let's just say that. A few frames until the red flag panel shows up. So we've all seen it. I don't know what took the FIA so long to decide on that. But what's even worse is that they did not decide at all. They said it's under investigation, and then time passed and Bortoleto just was like, well, I am registered to be in Q2, so I'm just gonna go to the end of the pit lane and wait there for the green light. And the FIA just gave up at that moment. I guess they were like, oh, well, Bortoleto's already there. We'll just let him do his thing. That's so incompetent. You know what? I'm actually gonna search up right now if they had anything to say about it. Because on the broadcast, it did not come up anything from the FIA. No, from what I'm saying, there's not even a mention of it. So, poor Ollie. He deserved to be in that Q2. So the FIA is incompetent again. I mean, at one point, a message popped up saying, no further action impeding Perez-Norris. What are you... How is that there? How did that get there? So yeah, the FIA is dumb, and there's nothing we can do about it. Unfortunately, there's literally nothing we can do about it other than complain, which is fun. Don't get me wrong. I love complaining. One of my favorite things to do, but we can't actually change anything. So I really want to be in that like control room with the FIA. I just need to see like how they operate, because it's interesting to me. Because again, why did it take him so long to think about it when it was very clear from footage that we have access to? Like F1 TV have access to that footage, so obviously they also have access to that footage, and even a more cutthroat, clear footage of exactly when he crossed the finish line, and exactly when the red flag was out. And B, I don't know, the whole thing, like they didn't even make a decision. Like, even if you rule against Ollie, you should rule against Ollie. They just didn't do anything. Stupid, dumb. Okay, I'm done with the race. Moving on to Q2, where the mediums have come into play, because along with Kimi, who didn't get through, both Ferraris didn't get through as well. And the whole Italian crowd and every Italian across the world, their heart broke and they cried. So those three were out, and both Williams were in, and both Aston Martins were in as well. And they did it on mediums. And that's where the mediums come into play. And I'm pretty sure that in Q3, they also did their runs on mediums. And again, qualified very well, the Aston Martins. So the mediums had some potential. And who knows what would have happened if any other of the grid would have taken mediums in qualifying. But of course, that's not like a easy decision to make, because you obviously want to save mediums for the race. So it's a strategy call that I respect Aston for doing. They gave themselves at least a chance to get some points. That didn't happen at the end. I honestly not sure how they screwed it up, if it was just pure race pace or just unlucky timing with the safety cars that we had. But yeah, at least they gave themselves a chance, a fighting chance. So in Q3, as I said, Oscar was on pole, Max was P2, George was P3, Lando was P4, Alonso was P5, Carlos was P6, Alex was P7, Lance was P8, Isaac was P9, and Pierre was P10. Wow, I remember that from the top of my head. So yeah, as I said again, I need Lando to figure out the qualifying pace, because that is costing him the championship at this point. And especially when qualifying was his strength in previous years, especially last year. Again, it's really hard seeing him struggle with it right now. The car, as I've said before, is a little bit harder to drive for him, specifically for him. I mean, obviously it's harder for Oscar to drive as well than it was last year maybe, but it fits more Oscar than it does Lando. Not on purpose, guys. Let's not be stupid. McLaren did not build a car for Oscar. But as it is, at the fastest that it can be, it fits Oscar more than Lando. Therefore, Lando is struggling to get everything out of it in qualifying. But moving to the race itself, the start was a bit crazy. Oscar got a good lunge. George got a good lunge. I think he got the best start of, I don't know if everyone at the grid, but definitely the top 5. He was right up there. And if Oscar wasn't right in front of him, he would have been P1 pretty easily, I would say. But Max, even with a worse start than Oscar, breaks later, gets ahead of Oscar in a great overtake, I must say. And that basically won him the race. I mean, obviously, good strategy with the safety cars and a good restart on the second safety car that Max just doesn't ever mess up. He's a pro at restarting a safety car. But yeah, that first turn overtake put him in clean air in the lead is, and I'm quoting Max, what unleashed their pace. So it was his race from that point. I mean, I do think Lando or Oscar could have won. I mean, Oscar, obviously, if he didn't get past in turn 1, he would have won. Probably, maybe. And Lando, I think, had a chance of winning if in the second safety car, if he came out onto the track after his pit stop, second on the road, like ahead of Oscar, maybe he could have got Max like he got Oscar. But Oscar was on older tires, so maybe not. But anyways, it was a hectic race, honestly. A lot to talk about, even though on paper shouldn't be a lot of action because of not easy overtakes. But safety cars is what brought the race alive. So Max is leading, Oscar's P2, Lando gets ahead of George at one point, and the race kind of settles. Charles is overtaking people, and then he pits, I think first. No, I didn't pit first because Ocon pitted like on the first or second lap. But he pits, I think he's in P9 at that point, and manages the most insane undercut I've ever seen, because a few laps later, George and Carlos, who are in P4 and P5 pit, and they get out of the pits behind Charles. Insane undercut. Honestly, don't know how that worked, but it did. So then McLaren pit Oscar, I'm guessing, to try to undercut Max and also not get undercut by none of those guys behind Charles, George, and Carlos. So he pits, have a little bit of a slow stop, and gets out ahead of Charles, but only just. 6 seconds, but again, he was P2 Oscar and Charles was P9 when he pitted. So not great news for everyone, I guess, who isn't Charles at that point. And the race continues, and Lando is P2, like about 9 seconds behind Max. He is faster than Max, but again, I don't know if Max was pushing the hardest that he could. He was slowly inching closer to Max. And then, for no particular reason, McLaren pits him. Honestly, I don't know what was that about. Maybe Lando was struggling with his tires, or they thought they're covering someone. But they pit him. And the moment he gets out of the pits, we get a virtual safety car for Ocon, who lost his engine. So yeah, a bit unlucky there. Very unlucky there. But also, McLaren should have just waited, because there was no reason to pit him at that point. But yeah, everyone else pits under the virtual safety car, including people who already pit, like Charles, which brings Lando back into P2 behind Max, but with a healthy gap, let's call it that, which would have been a lot smaller if he would have pit also under the virtual safety car. So tough luck, I don't know what to say. And again, the race settles for a while, and then we get another virtual safety car that turns into a full safety car pretty quickly for Kimi, who also, as I said, DNF'd, lost his engine. Honestly, set his way to DNF. Like, obviously you don't want to damage the car, but it's like, no way the engine just gave up. Like, that's so sad. And pretty much everyone, I think, pits again under that safety car, except from Oscar, who stays out and gets ahead of Lando in that when Lando pits, basically. And then on the restart, Max nails it, as always. Lando gets ahead of Oscar, and there's not enough laps to try to get Max. He's 5 seconds behind Max at that point where he passes Oscar, and we have like 4 racing laps left. That safety car lasted so long. Like, it lasted 7 or 8 laps, I think. And like, it took a while to let lapped cars to unlap themselves, which also took like 2 more laps than usual. Anyway, if the safety car was shorter, maybe Lando would have had a chance. And also, as I said before, if Lando would have gotten ahead of Oscar for the restart, so he was behind Max, maybe he could have gotten him. But yeah, that was that. Honestly, I'm okay with this result, kind of, because Lando is ahead of Oscar, but obviously would have rathered a win for Lando. So Max wins for the 4th consecutive time in Imola, which is a circuit record. Lando comes in P2 and Oscar in P3. I honestly still don't fully understand what they were doing with the strategy there, like what they were trying to do. Don't fully get it. Hamilton comes in P4, which is a great recovery from P12, I think he started. Alex in P5. We'll talk about it a bit later. Charles in P6, George in P7, Carlos in P8, Isaac in P9, and Yuki in P10, who started in the pit lane, so great recovery as well from him and from Charles. But yeah, double points for Williams, who seem very, very good this year. There was a time in that race where Alex ran in the top 3, and a tiny hope for a podium for him, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But he was supposed to be P4, because he was running in P4, and then Charles was behind him trying to overtake him. He pushed him off the racing track, and then Lewis got both of them, but then they told Charles and Alex to swap positions, so he should have been P4, and maybe Lewis would have gotten Charles, but Alex should have been P4. Whatever, it's still good points for Williams. And Carlos again in P8, was it I said? Yeah, P8. So again, great points for Williams. Great effort, great car, it seems, especially given that it's basically an updated 2024 car. And honestly, I think it's a shame that they're not gonna do any developments on this car this year, because they're putting all their eggs in 2026. But if they did do developments on this car, I honestly think they could have multiple podiums, because they're the 5th best team at the moment by far, and on some weekends even better than Ferrari. And I get wanting to put all your efforts and money and resources towards 2026, where you can actually be world champions theoretically, but exactly because everything is so unknown next year, maybe you should put a little more time into this year's car and give yourselves a better chance of getting a good result this year. But I think James Bowles knows what he's doing, obviously. So who knows, maybe 2026 Williams will be one of the top 4 teams, or 3 teams, or 2 teams, or maybe even 1 team. What else happened in the race? Oh, it's not what happened in the race, it's how I watched it. I watched it with a bunch of people in an event hosted by AWS, partnered with Adidas. I won this hat, which I don't know when I'm gonna wear it because I'm not a Mercedes fan, but I'm not gonna say no to free merch. And I also got to wear George Russell's helmet. And yes, I did the pose, of course. Everyone who wore it did the pose. So yeah, that was very, very fun. It's such a different experience from watching it alone at home on like a little screen of my computer. So yeah, the atmosphere was ecstatic. Everyone was cheering. Everyone was, excited. I met some good friends and it was very fun and cool. And yeah, I hope I get to do this again. And I think that's all. I feel like I'm missing something, but I honestly don't know what it is, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. Next week is Monaco, also the Indy 500, which I'm gonna try to watch, but I'm obviously out of the loop because I don't watch IndyCar full time yet. So I don't know, but I'll try. I want to watch it. So we'll see how all of that goes. And yeah, in the meantime, enjoy these memes. Bye!
What is happening? This is a bad dream.